Hi, welcome back to Jerry Spinelli's Report to the Principal's Office. Today we're going to read chapters 3 and 4. Here we go, chapter 3. Charles Brimlow was ready as he would ever be. 15 minutes before the first bus arrived, he was out front wearing a smile as wide as his bow tie. And why not? He was a brand new principal in a brand new school. Talk about a fresh start, and he was determined to make the most of it. The town, the architects, the taxpayers, they had given him all any principal could ever ask for in the way of a facility. The most modern this, the most up-to-date that, high-tech electronics from boiler room to the kitchen. But without people, it was just a brick and glass skeleton. Students, teachers, staff, they would bring it to life, give it heart and soul. And it was he, Charles Brimlow, more than any other person who would determine the quality, the character of that heart and soul. He could only be successful, he decided, if he and the students worked together as a team, or even better, as a family. That was the key word, family. He intended to keep that word constantly in mind as he guided those 340 kids through their 3 years at Plumstead. All summer long, Mr. Brimlow has studied their records and profiles and pictures, so that now, beaming as the buses began to arrive, he felt as if he already knew them. It was a stitch watching the surprise on the kids' faces as he held out his hand and greeted many of them by name. "Good morning, Jennifer. Welcome to Bloomstead." "Hiya, Robert. You look like you've gained weight over the summer." "Morning, Claudia. Still want to be a pilot?" Now, here was a dark-haired girl he couldn't place. Of course, that might have been because her face was contorted in one of the most miserable frowns he had ever seen. He felt an instant need to make this child happy. "Hello there," he said cheerfully. "I'm Mr. Brimlow. What's your name?" "Butthead," replied the girl, and breezed on past. By the time Mr. Brimlow recovered, the girl was long gone, and another stood in front of him. This one had long, curly hair, a thin, interesting face, and large eyes that seemed on the verge of astonishment. Slung over her shoulder was a green book bag. Her name was about to come to him, but she was the first to speak. "You're Mr. Brimlow, aren't you?" "I am," he said, still somewhat dazed by the first girl. "The principal?" "So they tell me." She smiled broadly and thrust out her hand. "Nice to meet you. I'm Salem Brown Miller." He shook her hand. "Salem Jane Brown Miller, to be exact." Her eyes widened. "You know me?" "I know your school profile." She sagged a trifle. "Oh," then perked up again. "So you know I'm a writer." "Indeed I do. You won the story contest at Hillmont last year." She beamed. "I won a gold pin. The story was called The Squirrels of Pauline. It's about this 5th-grade girl and 2 baby squirrels she meets when lightning strikes a tree in the playground and they fall out of their nest. Would you like to read it?" "I certainly would," replied the principal. In a flash, the girl whipped out some stapled sheets from her book bag and thrust them into his hand. "I carry copies of my stories everywhere I go. You never know when somebody might ask for one. Or suppose my house burns down with all my manuscripts in it." Mr. Brimlow was considering the horror of it when a short, portly man with hair in his ears tapped him on the shoulder. "You the bus monitor?" "No, I'm the principal. Can I help you?" "Yeah," said the portly man. "I got a kid here who won't get off my bus." Chapter 4. The masked stump of a cigar moved about the mouth of the portly, hairy-eared man as though it had a life of its own. "I couldn't drag the kid off," he went on, "but I don't need to get sued. I already put my hands on enough of them. In 10 minutes, I gotta be at the gas station. This ain't my only job, Chief." Mr. Brimlow nodded. "Lead the way." Salem Brown Miller tugged on his sleeve. "Oh, Mr. Brimlow, can I come too? I'm writing a story about a girl's first day in middle school, and this might be a really neat subplot." The principal faced her sternly. "Miss Braun Miller, whoever that is on the bus, it is a person, not a subplot." For once the girl was slow to speak. Those wide eyes stared up at him. "I didn't mean it that way, Mr. Brimlow." The principal softened. "All right, keep your distance and don't interfere." The boy was in the back seat of the bus. His head was slightly atilt. A brown lunch bag rested on his lap, held by both hands. The toes of his new sneakers pointed towards each other. They did not reach the floor. The principal walked halfway down the aisle and stopped. The boy seemed to be staring at a point in space about a foot in front of his own face. Mr. Brimlow remembered the face. Brockhurst. "Edward," he said gently. In the background, the first bell rang. Students yelped, streamed past the bus windows. Edward Mott, no response. Brockhurst, flag boy. Edward Mott's head remained still, but his eyes rolled upward. I'm Mr. Brimlow, your new principal. He sat at the edge of a seat. Would you like to come up here and sit with me? No answer. The principal moved one seat closer. You know, Edward, do your friends call you Eddie? The boy shrugged. You know, Eddie, we have something in common, you and I. Can you guess what it is? Eddie Mott shrugged. Well, I'll tell you, this is your first day as a sixth grader, and it's my first day as principal. How about that? The answer came from the front of the bus. I don't get out of here. This is my last day at the station. There's a mechanic down there that can't work on cars because he's going to pump gas because I ain't there to pump gas. Mr. Brimlow stood. He clapped his hands. Okay, Eddie, what do you say? Ready to go? Eddie Mott finally spoke. No. That does it, growled the driver. The door swung shut. The engine rumbled to life. The bus lurched down the driveway. Hey, said Principal Brimlow. We're being hijacked, piped Salem Brown Miller, not unhappily. The bus roared right on past the school bus parking lot and did not stop till it humped up to the restroom of the Texaco station at the corner of Grant and Mudd. The driver flipped his hand as he jumped off. You want to fire me? Fire me. It was now 8:10 a.m., 10 minutes into the first period of the first day at Plumstead Middle School, and a lot of people didn't know where a lot of things were. The gym teachers couldn't find a football, the geography teacher couldn't find a map, and the math teachers had no chalk. And no one knew where the principal was. Mrs. Wilbraham, the school secretary, was going batty. People were calling her on the brand new, high-tech, state-of-the-art intercom system, but darn if she could figure out how to answer them. She flipped switches all over the fancy console, but the best she could do was connect the kitchen to the teacher's lounge. The office was getting more and more crowded. Teachers, students, everyone had a problem or a question for her, as if she were the answer lady. She didn't even know how to work this newfangled telephone, with its million buttons and lights. If she did, she'd be calling the police right now to report a missing principal. First period was nearly over. The German teacher was trying to figure out the intercom. The nurse was studying the telephone, and the entire history department was at the counter asking for books, when in strolled the principal himself, along with a boy and a girl, and taking their sweet old time about it too, laughing, jabbering, couldn't care less if the school was falling down around the secretary's ears. You're late, said Mrs. Wilbraham, not even trying to disguise her displeasure. The principal pretended to be shocked. We are? He looked down at his accomplices. Well, he shrugged, I guess we'll all have to go to the late room. The three of them broke up laughing. He then looked up the kids' schedule, scribbled out a late note for each, and sent them on their way, but not before shaking hands with them and saying with a wink, see you at lunch. Mrs. Wilbraham bit her tongue. She had trained 5 principals in her lifetime. Apparently this one was going to take some doing. She had to admit, though, once he decided to show up, things did get done. Within 5 minutes, the gym people got their footballs, the geography teacher the map, the mathematicians their chalk, and the history department got their books. He showed her how to get an outside line on the telephone, and he played the intercom console like Liberace on the piano. There were only 5 minutes left of first period when he flipped the toggle labeled All Receivers and made his opening remarks to the school. Good morning, everyone. I apologize to you all for not speaking to you during homeroom. I had some pressing business elsewhere. Let me make it plain that this is not my official greeting. That will come in a couple of weeks when we are having our opening assembly in the new auditorium. That's when all of us will meet, all of you, and when we will learn the identity of our school mascot, the selection of which you will be involved in. In the meantime, let's you and I and Plumstead get to know each other. Over the last couple of years, we have all felt a little like orphans now and then, haven't we? Not enough seats, not enough classrooms, shifting school boundaries. We were never really sure where we belonged, did we? Well, I'm here to tell you that's all over. I'm here to tell you that now we have our own place, our own house. I'm here to tell you, welcome home. The principal flipped the toggle off, laid down the mic, and went into his office. Someone was there. Okay, so that's the first day of school for the principal, and he wasn't where he was supposed to be. Let's hope things get better in the next chapter. See you next time. Bye-bye.